policymakers could consider employing cyber operations to de-escalate crises. But those intentions could actually result in the opposite effect and escalate the situation. That's according to a report by Michael Fischerkeller. He's a research staff member at the Institute for Defense Analyses. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
So there is this assumption that in a military crisis between nuclear-armed states, that cyber operations can be used as an off-ramp to de-escalate the situation. Do you agree with that?
I do not. There have been claims made to that effect, but in the research paper that I did for the Institute for Defense Analyses and for the Atlantic Council, I actually make an argument that just the opposite could be true, that reversible cyber operations in particular may signal a lack of willingness to commit to escalating the situation that encourages the adversary to back down.
So you use the word reversible, and cyber operations are reversible. You can kind of, you can't unbomb a building, but you can put things back that you've, attacked cyber-wise. Isn't that a good thing, though, that you can reverse the damage?
Well, that seems to be the conventional wisdom, which was the motivation for my exploring the wisdom. And I was able to track the original argument back to a 2019 Atlantic Council paper that made these claims, and what I discovered was that these claims were actually not supported by the evidence that the authors proposed in that paper. And so that led me to then explore really what is the value of reversible cyber operations, in particular what's their value in an escalation management situation. Because you're correct that you would think there is value in reversibility, and there may be. But my question is there value in reversibility in a crisis escalation management strategy? And my conclusion is no, there is not, because it demonstrates a lack of commitment.
What does that mean, a lack of commitment? And what's the kind of the evidence that you're looking at? Because we've never had this kind of escalated crisis between nuclear armed states.
That's an excellent point. We never have. Which makes it potentially all the more dangerous to use it as an instrument of escalation management, because great powers aren't familiar with this tool. And there are reasons to believe that cyber operations could lead to inadvertent escalation, could lead to accidental escalation, and therefore are perhaps more dangerous than people think that they are right now.
But why are they more dangerous than, say, kinetic action, right? Why would they lead to inadvertent escalation, whereas, dropping bombs wouldn't?
Great powers have a long history of crisis management and dealing with militarized crises. And over the course of that history, we have tended to use diplomatic instruments, economic instruments, and non-cyber military instruments. And so states understand what the costs are. They understand what the risks are associated with those, and that familiarity makes them more valuable and more prudent and dependable instruments of crisis management.
Cyber operations also tend to have a different psychological impact. Can you talk about that and how that plays into the possibility of escalation?
They do, and one of the studies that I cite in one of my essays actually was a simulation where participants got an opportunity to use cyber operations in a militarized crisis scenario, and they chose not to. And when interviewed afterwards, they said that they felt that cyber had a different feel, that there's an unknowability about it, that there are risks inherent in it that we don't yet understand. Again, back to the lack of familiarity argument. And so again, probably not the most prudent choice for crisis escalation management. Just
because it's scarier. We don't really know what could happen.
Well, the terms that I would use are it's unpredictable and it introduces uncertainties. So a particularly important uncertainty is that states right now have a very limited set of mutually agreed upon understandings of what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior in cyberspace. So during a crisis, a state may employ a cyber operation that it feels is relatively benign, but the other state may feel that it's actually very aggressive. And because of that lack of mutual understanding, it introduces the level of uncertainty, and uncertainty in a crisis situation is never a good thing.
So what should military and civilian leaders be thinking about in their, in an escalating crisis if they start thinking about using a cyber attack?
Well, they have to understand that there are the attendant risks, right? And I mentioned there's inadvertent escalation because of a lack of mutual understanding on what's acceptable and not. There's potentially accidental escalation because of the interconnectedness and the technical complexity of targets. There is, if they're considering a reversible cyber operation, there is the possibility that it signals a lack of commitment, which would invite escalation to venturism on the part of the opponent. So it's important for me to caveat, we are talking about the use of cyber as in supporting an escalation management strategy in a militarized crisis. This is not a bad news story for cyber. Right? Cyber has unique strategic value in day-to-day competition short of militarized crises and armed conflict. And it also has unique novel strategic value in armed conflict itself. So my research focuses on that middle slice. How valuable is it in supporting an escalation management strategy in a militarized crisis?
Can it be used as a de-escalation tool if used properly?
Today I would say no. What would have to happen for it to be useful or valuable in that way is that either the core dynamics of crisis escalation would have to change, and that's unlikely. They've been the same for decades, if not millennia, or the core features of cyberspace itself and the technical complexity of targets and interconnectedness would have to change. And I don't see that changing anytime soon either.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you very much for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.